anything substantial in that sector. So I turn you now to our Honourable MP, Mr. Ravi Ratiram.
Thank you very much, Senator Nakhid, and a pleasant good morning to all of you. Tune in to this Sunday morning opposition media briefing. A pleasant good morning to my parliamentary colleagues and to my esteemed political leader, the leader of the opposition, the Honourable Kamla Prasad Bisesa, and to members of media who are present here physically and virtually, my brothers and sisters all. Pleasant good morning to all of you. I want to begin this morning by referring to an Express article from yesterday by journalist Kay Marie Fletcher bearing the captions, "Farmers Protest Outside Agriforum." The article drew reference to an interview that I gave to the media, having joined a group of farmers in the demonstration outside of the Agri-Investment Forum and Expo. Now, from the onset, I want to say that despite the neglect that the agriculture sector has received from this Rowley-led PNM administration, we in the United National Congress take this opportunity to congratulate the participants at the Expo and the CARICOM heads of government for the initiatives in working towards attaining regional food security. This is something that our leader has been speaking about for the longest while. She even asked me to pilot a motion in the parliament on food security that was not supported by this government. However, we applaud the initiatives of those who are participating, those hard-working farmers involved in the local market, and even members of the public who are supporting the agriculture sector at this point in time. We need to work collectively as a country, and we need to be serious about implementing what we speak about. And it is not just about talk, but it's about action. So, that being said, I want to say that the facts remain that the vast majority of the farmers in TNT are in no better position than they were 7 years ago, back in 2015, when he was campaigning to become Prime Minister, that is, Dr. Keith Rowley, promised to do several things in agriculture, none of which we have seen come to pass up to today's date. As a matter of fact, even before that, in every budget brought by the People's Partnership Government during the fiscal term 2010 to 2015, on every single thing that the partnership was criticized regarding to agriculture, his administration, that is the Rowley-led PNM administration, has done absolutely nothing from then to now to address the issues that they cried and complained about. In fact, brothers and sisters, the issues facing the agricultural and fishing sector under this Rowley-led PNM administration has gotten worse off. So yes, brothers and sisters, I spoke to the media on Friday, and I mentioned a number of problems that our farmers are facing, including, in the first instance, the erroneous loss, the losses that farmers incur as a result of flooding. Just Thursday gone, I was alerted to a protest which farmers in my own constituency of Couva North held regarding the government's lack of maintenance of the major watercourses in Perseverance Union Exchange area. And I just want to share with you some pictures here. This here is the main watercourse, which comes all the way from McBean straight across to the Waterloo Road that joins Union Village, the Exchange Village. And this is the watercourse that runs all the way to the sea. Where you're seeing that blue line, that blue pipeline, it's actually the river that goes all the way west to the Gulf. This is the opposite side of the road. What you are looking at here is the opposite side of the road of a main watercourse that carries all the water coming from central Trinidad to exit into the Gulf. And that is the condition of the watercourse there, brothers and sisters. Just as they gone, I was there, these pictures were taken out, and I met with different persons, different farmers. Year after year, for several years now, these farmers have been pleading for support from the Ministry of Works and Transport for these rivers to be clean and desilted all the way to the sea. And I have made several representations inside and outside of the Parliament on these issues. On the invitation of the local government representative, I met with those farmers. And when I saw what was happening, my brothers and sisters, I began to host a live Facebook broadcast on location at the Perseverance Exchange intersection to alert the public as to what was actually taking place. That video is still posted on my Facebook page, MP for Couva North, Ravi, Ratiram, and you can see more of that on the Facebook page. And I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, that my heart sank when those farmers like Mr. Premchand Sukraj, showed me his waterlogged farming plot in that exchange area. I visited that plot myself, and I took out some pictures. And this is what Mr. Premchand Sukraj had to deal with. This is his plot. This is his agricultural plot that government wants to take away from farmers for failing to cultivate. But how can these farmers with plots like these, this here is actually the roadway to his plot. This is another part of the roadway leading to Mr. Premchand agricultural plot. Mr. Sukraj himself, he went on camera pleading, and I quote, he said, "I would like the ministers to get up and come and see what needs to get done on the floor. They cannot stay in an office and see what is going on the outside. We need assistance, otherwise our livelihood is going down the drain." Mr. Sukraj also highlighted the overgrown bushes that had blocked the access road. This was another issue raised by farmers, that they cannot even use the agricultural access road due to the waterlogged state of the land. The roads deteriorate and become overgrown and impassable, and not just there in Exchange, several other areas across the country, including the Felicity farmers, which also falls into the constituency of Couva North. That same day, August the 18th, I issued a press release calling for immediate intervention from the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, Minister Kazim Hussain, whose ministry is responsible for the maintenance of these agricultural access roads. I also called upon the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government and the Minister of Works and Transport to wake up and do their job. You see, brothers and sisters, he probably wants to talk about food security, but look at what is happening on the ground. If our farmers cannot access their agricultural plots except on foot, how are they going to get to their produce, and how are they going to get these produce out of the field? And when the crops remains there and rotting in the field, whether above or below the ground, what happens? The country suffer, citizens suffer. The price of the goods in the market continues to go up, and then the country blame the farmers. The infrastructural issues faced by these central farmers also extend to the Ministry of Works and Transport and the failures to maintain some basic infrastructure, like the bridges that are necessary to access these agricultural plots. I visited the bridge in the Randikata Road within the constituency of Couva North with Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, Minister Avinash Singh. We had commitments from him that we would have the repair works executed post haste. Nothing was done, brothers and sisters, and you know what ended up happening? That entire Randikata bridge collapsed. Now farmers have to actually go down into the water, pass through the river to go reach on the other side to get to their lands, and when they have to bring out the produce, sometimes they have to do the same. So you see, brothers and sisters, they continue to suffer from the neglect of this PNM administration. One of the things that I sincerely hope comes out of this 3-day Agri-Investment Forum and Expo is that there is some injection of investment into agriculture, and not just the footwork with CARICOM leaders like Keith Rowley and his cabinet ministers. Because you see, we have Dr. Ali visiting us, and I want to make reference of an article where this article is from the 2nd of March, Guyana presents proposal for reducing CARICOM high food import bill. And what this article is reporting from way back then, down the article, it is stated that on average, CARICOM member state expended an estimate of 2.1% of national expenditure on agriculture. However, President Ali urged that a significant increase is required of about 5% expenditure in agriculture by 2025 by each member state, with Guyana committed to expending 10% of the national budget to agriculture by 2025. So, you see, we have one head of state leading the way and working towards achieving that food security. In another article dated the 7th of April from the news in Guyana, government's intervention seeing reduction in prices of fruits and vegetables. Are we experiencing that here? No, brothers and sisters. What we are seeing is an escalating price of food and vegetables. This article from the 7th of April states, with the price of fruits and vegetables reducing across the country, Guyanese are in a better position to afford and consume fresh produce. The reduction in costs is due to the many interventions by the government. Minister of Agriculture, Minister Mustafa, said, the measure are amongst a number of strategies the administration has implemented since taking office in August 2022. However, I think that's supposed to be 21, but that's what the article says. However, when we go into this article, one point I would like to highlight is the article says, we have done a lot of canals and drainage work over the last year. Minister Mustafa added, sufficient drainage also played a vital role in ensuring that thousands of acres of farmland were secured, especially during the major floods. Guyanese could also expect massive drainage and irrigation upgraded this year with a whopping 13 billion set aside to strengthen drainage system across Guyana. So on one hand, we have a country working towards eradicating flooding, working towards making these agricultural plots accessible to their farmers, working towards that country's food security and regional food security. And on the other hand, we have a government here in Trinidad and Tobago who is all talk and absolutely no action. Because while this Rowley-led PNM administration continue to talk and rant and rave and say the things that they are saying, trying to hoodwink and mama-guide the population and the rest of CARICOM, their willingness and their interest into food security, their actions are proving otherwise. Farmers are suffering. Brothers and sisters, the lack of investment into agriculture is one of the main stumbling blocks that our farmers face under this PNM government. For instance, if we look at the government's field agriculture stimulus package, the first 500 million in fiscal year 2021, and I have here an extract from the draft estimates of expenditure 2022. This here is the draft estimate that shows you the line item where the 500 million was placed in the Ministry of Finance. But in 2022, it shows the revised estimates. And the revised estimates clearly shows from 500 million, it went to 10 million. That's what the revised estimates. The actual will come out in this budget, and it will show an actual of somewhat around 62 million. But they failed to utilize that 500 million. And that is not Ravi, Ratiram, MP for Couva saying so. I am reading from the documents provided to us by the Ministry of Finance. When we look now at this 300 million for fiscal 2022, we see that we are almost at the end of the fiscal year and there's absolutely no accountability for what is taking place. And I make reference to an article in Loop TT by economist on agriculture. Economist Indira Sajiwan Ali. This was published by Loop TT in October 6, 2020. And the economist is saying 500 million, not enough. But the most important part of this article, I want to go to the concluding paragraph. There are things that I would have taken a bigger risk, but on face value, the problem continues to be implementation deficit that the country suffers. The problem continues to be the implementation deficit that the country suffers. Last line of this article. And what I basically mean is that this government, they make all sorts of promises, but they fail to implement, and that is one of the problems that we are facing here in this country. Added to this is also the suggestion of an early budget, but no one knows at this point in time whether 300 million agricultural stimulus package on the books of the Ministry of Finance has gone. So I asked the question this morning to the Honorable Minister of Finance, Minister Imbert, where has the money gone? Brothers and sisters, this is an important question, because when we have allocations and we come during the budget time and they boast about how much they are going to put towards certain line items at the end of the financial year, when we look at what was actually released and what was actually utilized, we recognize that they normally come around the budget time to hoodwink and to mamadize the population. And we must not accept this, brothers and sisters. We are calling on all citizens to start speaking out and demanding representation and demanding the deliverables that the government said they are going to do. If nothing else, this speaks to the absolute incompetence of the Ravi-led PNM administration and his various ministers to implement what is rolled out in the budget. So, brothers and sisters, we ask the question concerning what is happening at this point in time. If the Keep Rowley administration are now turned to CARICOM leaders for assistance because Rowley and his government remain clueless and is without a plan, we need to ask these questions. But there is a plan, and I will get to that plan in a short while, and we will provide you with some solutions and some suggestions. But before I go into that, I want to turn to another major issue affecting the agriculture sector. I want to turn to a very important issue relating to the protection of our farmers and our fishermen. With respect to our farmers, predial larceny remains a foremost threat to farming and to the livelihood of this group of persons. Among the many articles about farming, farmers having their crops stolen, I note a Guardian media article of May 9th this year that bears a heading which I believe paints an ideal picture of what is happening at this time. That heading reads, "Farmers overwhelmed by bold-faced bandits." The article states, and I quote, "After toiling in the field, tending to their crops and spending thousands of dollars on animal feed, farmers in South are contemplating whether the agricultural business remains feasible as thieves are constantly looting their farms. And certainly, end quote, and certainly, I have repeated time and time again, both inside and outside the parliament, the issues that the officers of the predial larceny squad face. To this, I continue to call on the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries to fix the predial larceny squad post-haste. With respect to our fisher folks, brothers and sisters, attacks on land by way of arson and theft, as well as piracy at sea, remains a prevalent issue of utmost concern. Just last month, we heard the tale of the Lochan brothers who were robbed at sea, narrowly escaping with their lives, and then had to swim for 4 hours before reaching ashore. And when they sought the assistance of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard in recovering their vessel, they were told by said Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard that they had no boats available. No Coast Guard vessel was available in Cedros, no Coast Guard vessel was available at Kings Wharf, at San Fernando, where they have the base, the forward base established to assist these fisher folks. How are they going to assist these fishermen who are in distress? How are they going to assist these fishermen with the piracy attacks that they are facing out at sea if they have no vessels out there, brothers and sisters? something has to be wrong. Something is definitely wrong. And I'm calling upon the sleepy minister. What's his name again? Minister Hines. Minister Hines, we need you to wake up from sleep, and we need you to address these issues that the Coast Guard is facing, that the Pre-Deal Larceny Squad for Resources are facing. Because you see, Minister Hines, I have met with you. I have done the diplomatic thing of sitting down and discussing with you the issues that are affecting our Coast Guard. I have given you 10 recommendations. A simple thing like improving the lighting at the Cali Bay facility. Up to now, Minister Hines, you have failed to implement a simple thing like that. There are so many low-hanging fruits that you can get to work that will help to improve the safety and the security of our fisher folk. But you have done absolutely nothing. I am hoping in this budget you seriously consider setting up a Coast Guard base at the Cali Bay facility so that there will be a Coast Guard presence along the Gulf that can patrol from south to north, and fisher folks who are out in distress will be able to get some kind of response when they call upon the Coast Guard. Beyond the safety and security of our fisher folk and farmers lie the issue of the lack of incentives to both of these groups. If we are to be serious about agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago, then we absolutely must look into the expanding the incentive structure for farmers and fishermen. The cost of everything has gone up, not by 10 and 20%, brothers and sisters, but they have doubled and tripled over the past 2 years. For instance, how many times has the government raised the price on fuel, which is something extremely important for the fishing community, and even the agriculture sector, and several other industries in this country? This happens after they remove leaded gasoline from the market, that was the regular gasoline from the market, without any consultation with the fisher folk. Now, fishermen must pay at least 3 times the price of what they paid for fuel when the UNC was in government. And to rub salt in their wounds, brothers and sisters, this uncaring and wicked PNM have refused to pay our fisher folks their fuel rebate. And when we ask why it is in the Standing Finance Committee, when we question the former Minister Clarence Rambarat, why it is that the line item which was responsible for the fuel rebate was not utilized, it's because no fuel rebate was paid. And we ask all outstanding fuel rebates to compensate our fisher folks, because that is something that we have put in place for them. With respect to our farmers, they have stated that the cost of pesticide, weedicide, and fertilizer has increased by approximately 300%. Yet the government has done nothing to even try to bring down this cost to ease them up. And I have here a list of fertilizer prices. What was the past prices, what was the current prices? And this year, I can just give you an example, brothers and sisters. Things like weedicide, Swiper, a popular weedicide, 5 liter of Swiper, which used to cost just last year $135, is now costing $250. Things like urea, which a lot of farmers use, 50 kilogram of urea, which used to cost $240 a bag, is now costing $325 a bag, right? Another thing like blue corn, 50 kilogram bag of blue corn that used to cost $350 a bag is now costing $560 a bag in just that short space of time. They are not doing anything to assist our farmers. When you look at grain, all-purpose feed, 35 kilogram, which was $73, is now $107 in that short space of time. And brothers and sisters, the price continue to escalate under their watch. And it seems as though all 3 ministers of agriculture, land, and fisheries remain incompetent to do anything to assist the agriculture and farming sector. I myself have issued no less than 3 press releases speaking to the increase in the cost of animal feed and associated factor inputs such as grain, corn, soy, etc. Contained in these press releases would have been suggestions of possible ways in which the government can assist our farmers. As a matter of fact, our honorable leader of the opposition recommended one of the measures which I spoke to, which was the reduction in the cost of borrowing that our farmers face when going to their bank. The Agricultural Development Bank, by removing the interest payment. The leader of the opposition, she spoke to me and she told me, she said, proceed in issuing that release. And I issued a press release dated the 3rd of February, bearing the headings, Couva not MP calls on government to remove all interest payment on ADB loan. 3rd of February 2022. Brothers and sisters, I called upon the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries to work in the best interests of their farmers and fishermen by removing all interest payment and offer a similar moratorium on ADB loans as is being offered to members of the business community. Following this, by letter dated the 4th of April 2022, I wrote to the CEO of ADB, Mr. Siobhan Ramnath. I have that letter here also. This is a letter dated the 4th of April, where I wrote the CEO of ADB, seeking a meeting to discuss matters relating to TNT farmers and fishermen. My office received a response via email dated the 8th of April. We got a response on the 8th of April, and this is what the letter stated, and I will read this for you. I will read the content of this letter for you. Request for meeting to discuss matters relating to TNT farmers and fishermen. The Agricultural Development Bank of Trinidad and Tobago acknowledged receipt of your letter dated the 4th of April 2022 and notes the content therein. The bank is currently in the process of reviewing your requests in the interest of the captioned subject group and will revert to you accordingly. Yours sincerely, Agricultural Development Bank, Trinidad and Tobago. Today is the 21st of August 2022. More than 4 months have passed and I am still waiting on this from the CEO and from the bank. But you know what, brothers and sisters? I remember the line from the blockbuster movie The Matrix by none other than the character Morpheus, who said that fate is not without a sense of irony. In listening to the remarks by His Excellency, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali, just 2 days ago in the opening ceremony of the said Agri-Investment Forum and Expo, President Ali said, and I quote, "The Caribbean Development Bank is an active partner and ready to support, but perhaps we should consider as a region whether we give an incentive to the financial institutions and say to them, for your agricultural loan, we are willing to remove any tax on the profits of the loan to agricultural system as an incentive to lend more in the agricultural sector." That is what the President said in this forum. But this is what the leader had spoken to me about way back earlier in this year, since February, since we issued that press release. Brothers and sisters, how far away is this from asking for interest charges levied by the ADB on loans to farmers and fishermen to be removed? It is certainly along the same lines of thinking, but while Keith Rowley and his government remains intellectually bankrupt of ideas and refuse to pay heed of the opposition's suggestion, here we have a CARICOM head of state coming to us in TNT suggesting similar measures. Brothers and sisters, we have businesses. If you go to the Ministry of Finance website, you will see where business that were under pressure can apply for this loan, where they were initially given a 2-year moratorium, which means that they did not have to pay anything for the first 2 years, and they are being offered interest-free loan up to 7 years on the payback. Why are these loans not being made available to the farmers and the fishermen if we are serious about agriculture? And I renew my call here today under the guidance of the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, calling upon the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries to work with the Ministry of Finance and have the interest on these agricultural loans removed so that our farmers and our fisherfolk can make the necessary investment and be able to carry on. And as we speak of the opposition suggestion for agriculture, I want to say to you at this stage that all of these issues are being faced by our agriculture and fisheries sectors have solutions. And the UNC has a plan for several of these issues that have been raised. We have the solutions, and they can be found in our National Economic Transformation Master Plan, which was presented to Trinidad and Tobago even before we saw the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic by the most caring and compassionate Prime Minister that Trinidad and Tobago has ever seen, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Visasa. So I want to invite the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Ravi, to go into the UNC's master plan, since he obviously had no plan of his own, and look at the section from page 59 entitled Agriculture, Creating a Food Secure Nation. And within those 10 pages or so, Dr. Ravi, you can read in details about how to achieve the key objectives which the UNC had outlined on creating 10,000 new jobs in the agriculture sector. This is something that my brother here next to me had put into action for some time. He had been working with the farmers in Tunapuna, in El Dorado, in Cora, my sister Jilly John, with the Hope Project in La Hoqueta, that the Prime Minister called what he called it, pak choy politics. And he criticized Sister Jillian John, and he criticized the youths of La Hoqueta who was trying to make an honest livelihood out of cultivating pak choy, setting up grow boxes, getting involved in backyard garden, encouraging the rest of Trinidad and Tobago as a country to produce what we eat, to grow what we eat. It was criticized by Prime Minister Keith Rowley, calling it pak choy politics. I want to tell him, it is time now we go back to the pak choy politics and we encourage all our citizens to get involved in the projects that the UNC had started. Our leader started the distribution of seedlings across the country, which I continued. We have given out over 25,000 seedlings. Started from her office in Siparia Pinal, it went all the way to Kumoto, to Belmont. In Port Spain, we were distributing seedlings. In Chaguanas, across Trinidad and Tobago, brothers and sisters, the leader and us within the UNC have given out already so far 25,000 seedlings, thanks to corporate citizens of Trinidad and Tobago coming forward to assist. We want to ask the Prime Minister to look at these recommendations, which included cut the food import bill by $2 billion, generate an additional $1 billion in agricultural export. It is this government that shut down Caroni Greens. It is this government that shut down the seafood industry. It is this same PNM administration way back shut down Caroni 1975 Limited. So when he talk about all these industries in the agricultural sector that has shut down, it is not that the industry shut down on its own. It was the intervention of the PNM administration that caused these industries in these sectors in agriculture to collapse and to shut down. It's because of the PNM intervention, and we are asking you, as you are the government and you are the Prime Minister, you need to correct the wrongs that you have done. And if not, you know what to do. You know what the honorable thing to do. We need to increase the contribution of agriculture to GDP to 5%. Since this PNM government came into office, brothers and sisters, we have seen a consistent decline in the contribution of agriculture to GDP. I have the document here. Actually, I have it right here. You can get it here. When you go to the Ministry of Finance, review of the economy 2021-2020, and look at that, we go to Appendix 1, Gross Domestic Product of Trinidad and Tobago, and we look at the various industries. This document here comes from the Ministry of Finance website. And if you go item A, the contribution of agriculture, forestry, and fishing. In 2015, it was at $1.468 billion. $1.468 billion. And in 2020, this document states it is now at 1.278. Moving from 1.478 to 1.278. That is a reduction of $200 million in agricultural produce. And that is what they have been presiding over, a 14% decrease in that 6-year period, a 14% decrease in the contribution of agriculture to GDP. So, as I wind up this morning, brothers and sisters, at this point, we can only conclude that the government has failed completely. They have failed our farmers, they have failed our fisherfolk, they have failed our consumers who have to pay exorbitant prices at the markets and the supermarkets. They have failed the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. In the past 2 years, since charged with the responsibility of shadowing the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, I have seen what can only be described as a systematic destruction of the agriculture sector in Trinidad and Tobago. Something which a former PNM regime started when they closed down Caroni 1975 Limited, and this Rowley administration continue to close down, as I mentioned to you, Caroni Greens, Seafood, and we see several other companies closing down under their watch. All that the PNM has done over the last 7 years is pay lip service and spend hundreds of millions of taxpayers' dollars behind Head 77, Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, without anything to show for it. And I have tabulated, it is close to $7 billion they have spent with absolutely nothing to show for it under that ministry. The skyrocketing cost of food on supermarket shelves is a clear sign that Keith Rowley and the PNM have failed to secure our national food security. But Rowley wants to talk about regional food security. We will not allow him to mamagai or hoodwink the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago or the citizens of our CARICOM region. This is the same Prime Minister who stated back in October 3rd, 2018, and I quote, "Agriculture will never be as commercially viable to TNT economy as oil and gas because the country simply does not have the land space to be a major global player in the field." Watch him here. This is it. Watch him here. Making his statement in October 2018, telling the country that we do not have enough land space for agriculture in this country. So, Dr. Rowley, is it that you have discovered some sort of new growing salt to alter the elasticity of the land space in Trinidad and Tobago, and you have found a new way to stretch the land? Or has your Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Minister Faris Alwari, indeed discovered his special chocolate tree, this guy, when picking chocolate, that will henceforth usher us into a new era of food security? So tell us please, Dr. Ravi, as we wait to see how many lessons you will learn from your CARICOM brothers and sisters, from our CARICOM brothers and sisters in this AgriForum Expo, and how many you will actually put to action to attract investment into TNT food and agricultural sector. Because we know one thing for sure, under you, promises never materialize. That is what your administration stands for. So brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. And I am certainly willing to address any questions that you may have. You can feel free to message us. And at the end of this briefing, we will be able to address some of those questions. Thank you once more, and I'll now hand you over to my partner, the Honorable Senator Nakhid.
Thank you, MP Ratiram, for a wonderful presentation, detailed, incisive, and it shows prominently how this Rowley-led PNM has failed in the agricultural sector. And we can segue immediately into the Agri-Invest Forum. I think that we touched briefly on. President Irfan Ali and Prime Minister Motley were probably wondering what was that smell of sulfur as Ravi came to speak at the forum, because we've never seen such a deceiver, such a liar, such a hypocrite when it comes to the issue of agriculture. You have a Prime Minister and I will give the macro view following on from MP Ratiram. You have a Prime Minister here who basically governs by events and sound bites. So, Agri-Invest Forum, no problem. The pretense of consultation, no problem. But we have seen no substantive policies that will enable farmers to push the agricultural sector forward. None whatsoever, none. There has been no overarching agricultural policy put in place that we can say, well, this group of farmers will do that. I'm bringing it down to the ground, that people understand what we are talking about. These group of farmers will go this, these group of farmers will go that they can supply food to the nation. And I'll get into why that affects and why this movement in silo by this intellectually bankrupt government affects what we are seeing now in terms of security for lives and livelihoods of the people. So when you have these kinds of just events going on by this government in agriculture, and the Prime Minister talking about we want to see a reduction in food import bill by 25% by 2025. What absolute rubbish. You have done absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, you have facilitated food importers during your time as Prime Minister. You have facilitated food importers. All the major food importers are your friends and financiers, whether it be Mute, Hadco, whoever you may call, they are your facilitators. You have done nothing, and you come here hypocritically to speak about you are interested in reducing food imports. What rubbish is that? We cannot stand the hypocrisy. We will not stand for it. You have done absolutely nothing to give the farmers any hope. You intend to increase the production in the agricultural sector, to bring them on board for the vision that has been stated by President Ali and Prime Minister Motley. And they know, I am sure that these CARICOM leaders know that you are stunt and front artists. They know that Keith Rowley is that. I mean, it's clear. So we like the Prime Minister. You know, I don't like to use this overused jargon of come down from there. But get serious. I mean, we are faced now daily with these kinds of headlines. No more hope, girls strangled. And when we look even internationally, I noticed people are committing suicide in droves. You know why? Because they cannot determine where their next meal will come from. So this issue of food security is not a simple issue. If people cannot eat, how can they live? If people cannot be convinced they can go about their daily lives to secure their futures and those of their children, how can they be confident in this government? So we segue immediately into what I consider the direct cause symptomatic of the government's lack of agricultural policy and structure, into the crime rate that we are seeing. Now, every society must grapple with crime and criminality. No doubt about that. In this country, however, we can no longer describe the problem merely as crime or criminality. We have reached a level of barbarism and monstrosity. I'll give you an example. Last Saturday, a group of friends, Lyman, as we do in Trinidad and Tobago on a night out, popular spot in North Trinidad, went to unwind. And you know what? As they laughed and talked about maybe what young men talk about, their futures, their careers, their families, they were attacked. 3 of them shot. The laughter of that night, silence in a cruel, unusual manner. A young man killed, 34 years of age. And the mother of that child, of that young man, cried out, "Please, Mr. Prime Minister, do something. Please, Mr. Prime Minister, do something." And then we looked at the daily newspaper of Thursday 18. Every citizen of this country, no doubt in shock. In the Express, let my son live, mom of 8-year-old boy. Guardian, boy 9, shot in the head. Guardian, girl 7, killed by relatives, strangled. Newsday, Palisade woman, girl 7 strangled. Every day, frustration grows, it builds. Because people have to worry about food security, their own security, personal security, their financial security. There's a tension that builds in a country. And it doesn't build up out of nothing. And we need the media to realize that. Because the media, inadvertently, can become facilitators of the frustration that we see. Especially when things are not reported as accurately as they should be. So we have a P&M government, primarily responsible for every single ill that we now see in the country. Primarily responsible for not being able to secure their lives, as was mentioned before by MP Ratiram, a national security minister, who clearly stated that he's not responsible for the safety and security of our citizens. And his policies, as I will state now, show that he has failed to secure the borders. The vessels languishing on the shore. He has failed to implement a policy where the TTPS are in conjunction with communities across the country. So no one feels safe in their own community. I go on. Newsday, no mercy. 2 children shot as target flees gunman. 9 and 11 years old. They were playing football in Never Dirty. Had they not been playing football in the full view of the public, they would have been branded what? Gang leaders. But these boys were playing football. These boys playing football in their community shot. 9 and 11 years old. You know why? And it comes back to what I spoke about. This is a government of events. Events. So the sports minister will put on an event for a week, 2 weeks. But that is not substantive policy. That doesn't in any way cater for the communities, especially the communities that are at risk, where most of our sportsmen and sportswomen come from. It doesn't cater for them. You have to go into those communities and target the young men and women. You have to go in with policies and programs. And it has to be something yearly. You have to invest in that. You don't have to invest in carnival to make your friends and finances happy. You don't have to invest in things for 1 and 2 weeks that make people feel good but bear no fruit. One of these boys in Never Dirty, one of these boys in Mova could have been the next White Young. One of those boys could have been the next Russell Atapi. One of those boys could have been the next Brian Lara. But how will we ever know? How will we ever know? Your concern cannot be, and I've stated many times before, only to attack the problem of crime when it reaches the penal system. What are you going to do? Lock up every little black boy and girl in the country? What you have to do is hold yourself to account. You have to give them the possibilities to become productive citizens. You cannot go about governing by events, by your sound bites of, well, it's parents, it's bad parenting. Ravi, you are the only bad parent here. You, in this whole scenario, you are the bad parent. You supposedly are supposed to be the father of the country. What have you done to give these young boys and girls from those communities a chance to elevate themselves out of poverty? And we can talk about that another time. Why are they in poverty? Why are they always starting behind the 8 ball when it comes to social and economic equality? Why? MP Ratiram spoke briefly about the banks for farmers. Why not providing access to financing for those small entrepreneurs in those communities? Why not have a discussion with the banks in order to enable them to get their businesses started? No, you won't do that. For you, Peter Rowley, the rich must get richer and they trickle down to the poor. That is your policy. Crumbs. And crumbs to the people that support you traditionally. But we, the UNC, contrary to how the media portrays it, we are in the interest of every single citizen. Those who have voted for us and those who have not voted for us. And the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessar is instructive and demanding that that takes place. And that is why I continue to speak on this issue of the communities at risk. So if Rowley continues to divide and talk about race only when it suits him, or talk about events when it suits him, you are being found out. You cannot tell me. I mean, I'll give you an example. President Irfan Ali instructing his Guyanese counterpart saying, General, please come home. He's saying to them, come home. You know why? He recognized that under this government, suffering. He recognizes that Guyana is going forward while we are not. We have regressed. Can keep Christopher Rowley go to the diaspora and say to Trinbagonians, come home? He can't. They have nothing to give them. So any ship, dinghy, pirogue passing and offering a job, they will run to tell Trinbagonians, go and get a job. Go. Run from here. Serious brain drain going on in Trinidad and Tobago. Soon you'll reach, by estimate, 6 or 7 out of 10 people with the educational capacity will leave Trinidad and Tobago. So as moronic as the PNM is already, you can imagine what will take place. They have no policies. But it's the facilitators of the PNM that we have to take to task as well. It's the facilitators of their inept and corrupt policies. And we go back to those boys killed. You know, because every day is some new gruesome murder. We have forgot about those boys, I'm sure. Every day is some new gruesome murder. Who does that benefit? I give these stories, which unfortunately are not the exception, but instead have become commonplace as each crime becomes more savage, more gruesome, as the criminals become more and more emboldened. It reminds us, the people of this country, that crime is not just a statistic. It is not merely a headline, as we see so prominently. It isn't just a social media post. Crime has a human face. It has a soul. It causes anguish and tears to those families. Those mothers who place their hope in their children. Those mothers who couldn't realize their own potential, but saw it in their children. I know mothers who call me, Senator, I would some help just to send my son to a camp, to learn some kind of vocation, to learn some kind of sport, to participate in some. They see the potential that the children have. But Ravi doesn't see it. He doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about it. As he would do something. But Ravi has shown us. He has shown us who he is. And he will continue to deny. And this is what I don't understand. People of Trinidad and Tobago, the primary responsibility of any government is the safety of its citizens. It's primary. But when one hears that, they think about the physical action of ensuring that safety. There is that, no doubt. But more than that, it's the whole integrated policy of what revolves around security. And that is where this government has failed so miserably. As I said before, they continue to move in silos. So when you don't provide proper roads and infrastructure for farmers, when you don't provide the cars that can prevent predial larceny, you are invited farmers who the WHO warned as the COVID hit that attention should be paid to a few factors. One was agriculture, education, and healthcare, of course. But that is self-explanatory. They spoke about agriculture. You are inviting farmers to become criminals. Because let me tell you something. Between a productive citizen and a potential criminal is a very fine line. And that's why you as a government are being paid from taxpayers to ensure that that fine line never occurs. That line becomes thicker and thicker. To prevent what can be productive farmers from becoming criminals. Because it doesn't take a rocket science to tell you, if I cannot feed my family, forget the senator chauvinist, forget the captain national team, if I cannot feed my family, my son and daughter, barely grumbling and crying, and my wife watching me, Koki, you a man, I will make sure that they're provided for. As well as any one of you here listening. And that is the task of the government. We have tasked them with that. They get money to do so. Not to come and talk a load of rubbish about what they intend to do and what they intend to do. MP Ratiram outlined, not one policy has been put in place for those farmers. As a matter of fact, farmland, like the St. Augustine nurseries, put in place to protect and bolster the agricultural sector. We have to bring an injunction to stop you from voter pardon. Imagine that, trying to build housing to voter pardon in St. Joseph on farmland, the St. Augustine nurseries. And then you want to come and talk in our Agri-Invest forum and sound like you care about agriculture. It's not enough to say all these are dance. You have to see he's a hypocritical dance. You have to say he's someone who really has shown to the nation that, you know what, I am Prime Minister, I'm good. He like to boast he's the leader of this country, the leader of the government. We wish, you think I like to sit down here and talk about a Prime Minister like this? I really don't. But this is the first Prime Minister in CARICOM history, indeed in Trinidad history, that has shown scant regard for the citizens of this country in every single sector imaginable. But it's not only a political responsibility of the government to provide for the safety of its citizens. It is the government's constitutional duty to protect the lives of our people. Our Constitution tells us we have the right to life and liberty, but there is neither life nor liberty when criminals kill us or our loved ones, or make you live in such a state of fear that we cower in our homes behind locked doors. There is no freedom of religious worship when criminals vandalize our temples, our mosques, our churches, assault our priests and imams. There is no right to privacy or private life when home invasions are perpetrated by bandits and gunmen. It's the order of the day now. Home invasions, the order of the day. We've seen many videos to that effect. And I repeat, those bandits who held up at Price Mart, as he said before, in bold-faced bandits, we add to that hungry bandits, desperate bandits. When people are hungry, you could have 1 million police. How are you stopping that? I want you all to make the connection as a people. What entails security spreads right down and filters through to all the ministries. But this government doesn't know how to integrate anything. They're not interested. You cannot tell me you are interested in security and you have an agricultural minister like Azim Hussain. Inept and inefficient. You cannot tell me you care about security of the nation and you have the hapless, as stated in one of the newspapers, the hapless Fitzgerald. No idea about how to ensure our citizens' safety. You cannot tell me you care about healthcare and you have Minister Diyal Singh, who was presiding over what until now and ran counting 4,089 deaths. Until now, you need 2 or 3 years for elective surgeries. Until now, you cannot get a lot of pharmaceuticals. Simple procedures. People are placed in the most abject conditions. In a ministry that purportedly has 6 billion apportioned there. Come on, people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is not about politics. This is about 7 years of an inefficient, uncaring, destructive government. Concerned only with recusals and procuring. This government is a government of business. They're not about a government of caring for the people. So what are you here for? If you are not about the people. There's not one ministry, anybody, any media house can tell me shows any progress in the 7 years. As a matter of fact, a report came out in the papers today where 3 commentators indicated that the government, this government, in 7 years has regressed. 3 commentators. Government failing on crime. And look, this is what this government about. 3 prominent. Titi, worse off now. Worse off now. But Ravi, smiling, like everything okay. No problem for him. He could go and come. No problem for him and his family. While you and I, if our wife, our husband, our child just go to the supermarket, we sit down by the window one day and they're coming home. That is a situation that is untenable. I do not understand how is that situation tenable. The plight of our trade unions. With over 8,000 employees under their belt. 135, some say 153 wage negotiations settled by the UNC under Kamala Prasad Bisesa. And this government come in these times and offer them 4%. 4%. And expect people to sustain a livelihood on that. And then they want to tell us they care. They are inviting these thousands, in addition to the farmers, to be criminals. You are telling them, go and fix your life. Go and how are you living live? Because you know why? I live in Goodwood. To get in Goodwood is like getting into Fort Knox. So, Raleigh and family, no problem. His friends and financiers, no problem. Goodwood, Westmoreans, no problem. The problem is with us. You black, you brown, you Indian, you African. You will fight over that. And Raleigh and his cabinet smiling all the way to the bank. Not one prominent African or Indian among them. And that is the major stakeholders. I continue to tell this country. This is the only country I've seen where the major stakeholders of the country are the minority shareholders in it. They have turned our African and Indian people into hustlers in our own communities. Hustlers in our own communities. If you give them a contract, the whole they giving gang leader, all they giving bad boys. Or they giving bad boys this, or they giving bad boys that. So all those who get in contract, they not gang. All those who are your favorite contractors, they are not a gang. I want you all to reflect on that. This PNM and this Rowley becomes concerned only when they try to place money in the hands of poor people. That is the only time he's concerned. So DSS, no way, no way. What happened to that report? Rambarat, Win Fine, coming back as manager of the single point management, some land management, he's the single, he in charge of that. Governing by sound bites. Nothing ever happens. Judith Jones report, Justice Judith Jones report, before his death now 8 months. Nothing has been done. Not one abuser taken out of a home. Not one. But front and stunt. Because he doesn't care. So what are we to do as a population? As I always say, we have as the opposition, as the loyal opposition to this country, we have to keep indicating to you. We have to have our say. The government, as you know, will have its way. But we have to continue to wake you all up. We have to continue to hope and pray that the time will come where your discontent, your frustration, doesn't go with a gun, but it goes with feet on the ground, protest against this government. Because in the end, for us to make this country a better place, we have to move the government that is making this country a wretched place. And that's the facts of it. If you want to deal with the factual reality, this government has to be removed in order for us to be able to make this a better place. This government, like many dictatorships around the world, would have you believe that the only way to fight crime is by removing our civil liberties. For instance, they tell you that in order to fight crime, they must restrict your right to bail. They should be allowed to imprison people for 120 days without evidence, without trial. That we know is simply not true. Restricting bail has not reduced crime, nor can it. And we had evidence of that when it was brought before us in the Senate. And we were able to stop it, their attempt to extend that. Because we realized that they had no data to show that there was any improvement in the bail restriction. There's not any improvement. They appealed to everything else but fact. Take, for example, the law in relation to bail for murder. Until only recently, the law was that a person could not access bail if he was charged with murder. That law was codified in the Bail Act in 1994. However, everyone would agree that since 1994, there has been a steady increase in the murder rate. As a matter of fact, projections for this year will make us, I think, to 570, 580, where the highest was in 2019, I would imagine, was 585, if my memory serves me correct. Before that was 2008, all under PNM government. If restricting bail could solve crime, then the murder rate would not have risen since 1994. That's logical. In other words, restricting constitutional rights does not solve crime. It only serves to empower the PNM and allow them to destroy our democracy. And we've seen examples of that by Keith Rowley. Here we have a prime minister hell-bent on infiltrating independent institutions. As a matter of fact, I would like Prime Minister Mia Mottley and President Irfan Ali to know that they are consulting with a criminal. Rowley has exhibited criminal misbehavior in public office. He undermined the Constitution when he intercepted the merit list in the selection of a police commission. That is a fact. And I've written several times to the Assistant Commissioner of Police on the matter. He has reported the matter. He has put that matter with the anti-corruption unit. But I would like the world to know and CARICOM. And I'm not disturbed But people say, well, you're embarrassing the country. No, Rowley is embarrassing the country. Rowley is the one who misbehaved in public office. And again, he tried to do it with a bail bill. Tried to undermine democracy. But we will not let him. We will not let him. Another recent example of the PNM's failure to govern is their policy in relation to the scrap metal industry. The government has said that in order to prevent larceny, they have enacted laws to shut down an entire industry that a lot of poor working class families make their daily bread. What a foolish and illogical position. You are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. A government must govern. It must manage problems, not simply pretend as though the problem doesn't exist. That's what you're being paid for. If there's corruption in the scrap iron industry, you have to manage that. Why are you there as a government? You throw your hands up in the air and say, well, we're banning everything. Well, you have problems in the healthcare system. Why not shut down the healthcare? We have chronic problems in our sports sector. Why not shut it down too? You make no sense, Keith Christopher Rowley. You make no sense. This is an industry that feeds people, not the people that you commingle with, Keith Rowley. These are poor working class people that you have now forced, as I said, like the agricultural sector, like the sectors I pointed to, you have now put these people in a position to easily become criminals. How will they feed their families? I'm telling you, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, you cannot just look at this in an abstract fashion. Oh, there's crime and there's only a sect. No! You're failing government policies. You push people into crime. You're failing government policies. You put the gun in their hands. You're failing to close the borders. You let the guns in. You admit that you know the ports of entry. Who have you arrested? Not one person. I tell you, this is a government, and people say that by VAPs. I say no, this is a government, they know what they're doing. They're a government by events, by sound bites, and our people run with that. But that's not going to feed your family. That's not going to protect your family. Well, if that is their solution, to govern by events and failing policies, because there is violence that increases in our school, does that mean that the government will stop educating our children as well? You see, the problem is not in our laws. The PNM can think over the law as much as it wants. They will bring no real improvement to our lives. The problem is certainly not that we have too many constitutional rights and protections. The problem is a lack of governance. And I want that to be the seminal takeaway from our presentation this morning on crime. I want people to understand that unless a government is able to have an integrated policy where all our sectors are placed permanently in a manner that we have a problem with the homeless, but that's not only a problem of social displacement. As a matter of fact, they intend to close down that car park, but they haven't identified where they're going to put those 400 people. It's not 200, it's more than that. I've been there several times. You are turning the homeless, socially displaced people, onto the streets of Port of Spain and other environments. How are they going to secure their living? You talk about St. Vincent de Paul not managing the millions that you gave to them. After 7 years, you now realize that. After 7 years, you gave money without managing it. I'm trying to show the government and the people of this country how it's the lack of proper governance and accounting by this government have us in the situation where we are. You can't come now after 5, 6, 7 years and lament the fact that St. Vincent de Paul mismanaged the 15, the 20 million that you gave them. But who gave them the 20 million to save other people? You just give them money and turn your back? Then what are you doing in government? What is your role as a government, keep rolling? And I can give you in every single sector. We have a sports sector where Shamrock Joe didn't provide anything for our 2 or 3 hour teams to go abroad and participate. Do you know what that does? That ensures generational failure. When you stop an under 14, under 15 girls team, under 14 boys team from going and participate, and you've seen all these small countries, Aruba, Curacao, Belize, all in CONCACAF, playing, and you tell these people here, no, you sit home. We have 17 million to give for independence celebration. We have 15 million for the carnival, little pods to make people wind up and stink and dirty. But them, the little black boys, the little Indian boys can't go play the cricket and the football. And then you come in and ask, well, how crime so high? It's all connected. And it comes back to a lack of proper governance by Pete Rowley and the PNL. So, people of Trinidad and Tobago, I think we come back to what is, I think, is most important, most unfortunate, is that we have a country in fear. We have a country living in fear. They fear for their food security. They fear for their children to go to school. I have so many requests for booklets. I mean, it comes back again to the visionless Keith Rowe. If all were afforded laptops, like under the Kamna Prasad Bisasa government, we didn't have to worry about booklet. Everything could be online, uploaded, everything, no problem. No parents have to worry about book bags, expenses that people in this guava season cannot afford. They simply cannot afford. They have put no incentives in place. Nothing in place to get people to feel comfortable going into the new school season. So I've gone into a bit of detail about why we have no reason, to be honest, to have hope in this government. I am praying that our citizens, despite whatever allegiance they may have, that they recognize that the facts are facts and they are stubborn things, and sometimes even messy, and that we have sometimes to make hard decisions, which might include boots on the ground, protests, widespread protests. And we as an opposition, it's our duty when we see a country that is on the verge of destruction or indeed in destruction to call for these things. And we call for these things. And we are in support of any sector that seeks the social and economic equality that is our right as Trinidad, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And I thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, please.
To both Mr. Nakhid and Mr. Ratiram, are you saying therefore that you have very little hope for the outcomes from the Agri-Investment Forum?
Let's go. You want to go first?
Well, what I can see is that as a region, based on the activities we are seeing across the region, there is hope for the region. But as a country, under this current administration, where several of their promises and policies have not materialized, it appears that Trinidad is in a very hopeless place under this administration.
You mentioned, Mr. Ratiram, the upcoming budget.
Yes.
We know that in last year's budget, as you pointed out, there would have been allocations or a larger allocation than was normally given over the years toward agriculture. So what is your hope, or do you think that the government is going to invest more in agriculture? Or are you saying that that is not going to happen?
What I have here is a spreadsheet of all the actual spend of this administration, showing you that this administration, from since they have come into office, have spent over $6.9 billion. They have spent that money into the agricultural sector. Are we paying cheaper? Are we improving our contribution of agriculture to GDP? Are we seeing a reduction in our food import bill? These are the factors that we take into consideration when we analyze the performance of the government.
Yes.
What we're seeing happening is that billions of dollars is being spent by this government while citizens continue to suffer under their watch and have to pay exorbitant price when they go to the markets. I know of single parents and mothers who told me that they cannot afford to buy fresh vegetables anymore to feed their family. They have to wait for these vegetables to stale. They have to go in the evening when the market are about to close off and want the rejected vegetables and the scraps just to see what they can scrape up and they can take home to their family and they can afford. Because the price of vegetables now is at exorbitantly high. And I'm pointed out to you, the reason based on the supply and demand which determines the price, the supply is significantly being affected by the flooding issue, the pre-deal larceny issues, and the neglect of this P&M administration.
Mr. Ratiram, what about external forces? I mean, Mr. Nakhid would have somewhat spoken to that. We know that the Russia-Ukraine war would have restricted supply as well as prior to the pandemic. So are you saying that the government's investment of $7 billion into agriculture has yielded no return on investment to the country at all?
What I can say is while they will want this government will want to blame everybody else, but accept responsibility and accept their responsibility, when we see the price of local producers soaring, which is what we are specifically referring to at this time when we talk about the price of goods in the market, the foreign grains and the investment and the importation of foreign grains have a very little impact on what is happening with our local agriculture sector. What we are attempting to do and what we are encouraging everyone to do is to buy local, to consume local. Imagine the Prime Minister went in that forum to talk about peeling cassava still. That's the foolishness he went to talk in that forum about, speaking about peeling cassava. When the protests that the farmers came out, the farmers were saying 13 bags of my cassava got stolen. So when farmers continue to suffer like this, what we see happening is the PNM now, they can't blame the opposition, they can't blame Kamla, so now they want to blame the war in Ukraine. The price of pimento has gone from $160 a bag last month to now $700 and $800 a bag, and that's the wholesale price. One pimento is almost $1 in the market. Do you think the war in Ukraine has anything to do with that? Definitely not. It is the failure of this Rowley-led PNM administration to adjust their basic necessities, like delivering on your promises to fix the Ratiram Bridge, by cleaning the water courses that currently 1975 Limited used to maintain. And Minister Clarence Rambaran said legally and by law that the Ministry of Works and Transport is responsible. So what we see happening is they are now shifting. Ministry of Works and Transport is saying agriculture is responsible, agriculture is saying Ministry of Works is responsible, Ministry is saying local government, and they keep shifting the goalposts amongst themselves, and no one is acting in a responsible manner to benefit those who elected them into office. And all of Trinidad and Tobago is now suffering under their watch.
Mr. Nakhid,
on that point, there has been absolutely no return on investment for the money they have spent. Absolutely none. Because we have seen reduction in prices across the board. We have seen no improvement in infrastructure. We have seen rise in flour prices. People cannot meet their food security needs. So if you're talking about the agriculture sector, when you talk about return on investment, what you're looking for is, are the people food secure? And when you talk about food security, you're talking about nutrition as well. In that food security, you're talking about nutritional needs. Do they have that? They don't. So you have to be very careful that, as I said before, a government that likes to put on events, build buildings, the taller the better, more money for friends and financiers. But there has been absolutely no return on investment by this government. I mean, Imbut came in the Senate and admitted that $500 million that MP Ratiram spoke about, that he had no requests for it from Rambaran. None whatsoever. You imagine that? $500 million. In other words, you're talking about a visionless, rudderless, leaderless government that doesn't know how to do anything in the agricultural sector.
In terms of crime, Mr. Nakhid, you would have also spoken to the ban implemented by the government, and they said within that 6-month period, there were several initiatives, for want of a better word, that they plan to utilize to restructure the sector. What is your take on that? And in terms of addressing some of the issues, as you would have spoken to corruption within that industry, what is your take on that? Do you think that those things are going to assist in reshaping the industry and some of the issues as it relates to corruption and possibly criminality within that sector?
No, it will not assist. What you've done, basically, you've put all these poor and working class people who work within that industry on the wetland. That's what you've done. I mean, if you have to take some of the reports that we are reading, a lot of high-level businesses are involved in that industry, and they are the ones who actually make the most profit. Now, they are not going to suffer from that ban. They are not going to suffer. As a matter of fact, their operations might still be going on. What they have done, the government, is as usual, pick the low-lying fruit. Poor and working class people, you could suffer. You sort yourself out. So in other words, what they have provided is not a solution to the problem. What they have done is try to hoodwink the population, as MP Ratiram say, by saying they have done something. You don't have, let me give you a solution. There's corruption they have identified within the scrap iron industry. People are stealing copper, so forth, so on. You cannot apparently stop them from doing so. In other words, you have admitted to the inefficiency and incompetency of the TTPS and the people who run the TTPS, unfortunately. In other words, you have admitted your inability to find some kind of alternative employment for people if you're going to ban it. In other words, you're throwing people to the wolves. And in throwing those working families to the wolves, you're throwing the population to the wolves, because they have said, some of those people have said, well, we are going to turn to crime. They said that we are going to turn to crime because they, like you and myself, we want to feed our families at the end of the day.
That's it for me.
So I want to thank you very much for your questions, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have joined us on this, on the live, on the Facebook, on the various social media platform, and this opposition press briefing. I want to remind you that Monday night virtual forum will be hosted this Monday from 7 p.m. So join us on our UNC Facebook page. And I also take this opportunity to congratulate MP Ram and our political leader for having the vision of hosting that
Football Day.
Football Day. Senator Nakhid, you want to just say a few words on the football?
No, I think it's wonderful to see all the people that came out, people from all levels of society. And we look forward to the final day today in Ratiram.
Finals is at the Center of Excellence. The games are started from 10 this morning and it's going straight down till 6 this afternoon. The finals will be played this afternoon, and we have lots of entertainment today at the Center of Excellence. So join our honorable political leader, MP Ram, and the entire team as we enjoy an evening of football at the Center of Excellence. Thank you.
Take care, Trinidad and Tobago. Be safe.